Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. It's our coverage of the World Test Championship final. Last time you heard from us, it was tea on the first day. It's now lunchtime on day two, and Australia have played very well. They're 7 for 422 at lunch. When we left you, they were 3 for 170, and they had a stunning last session yesterday. They scored none for 157. Now, we're going to get into the details of that. I'm joined by my co-host, Paul Dennett. Paul, how are you? Hello.
Hi, I don't know what's happening with my network. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Did you hear any of that?
I
I
heard the
said, how
start.
are you? I said, how are
Good.
you?
I thought it was a great session. A very entertaining session of cricket.
Oh, sorry, you dropped out there. What was that? We're going to start again. Having a few technical difficulties here, coming to you from Sydney, Australia. Internet not as robust as in some parts of the world. Fascinating start to the World Test Championship. Ripping stuff. That Travis Head 150 was just spectacular. I've interviewed him a few times on the podcast. Paul's just going to log back in. So we'll continue soon with the wrap up of the action. But, I've interviewed Travis Head a few times on Cricket Unfiltered, and it's amazing what an effect it had on him being given the South Australian captaincy at such a young age of 20. It actually hampered his development quite a bit. And I think one of the reasons he's been a late bloomer and has taken a while to really, um, you know, dominate Test cricket the way we're seeing is the fact that, when he was 20, he shouldn't have been captain of South Australia. He should have been working on his batting, maybe vice captain, keep him in the leadership role. But it did put a lot of responsibility on him. And, speaking to him on the podcast, the first year or so of that was really, really challenging for him. A young man still trying to make his way in first class cricket and also trying to learn how to be a captain. So, once he was relieved of the captaincy. I think he was a captain for 2 seasons, maybe 3. I know he's got it back now, but then he had a break from it, and he's really been able to work on his game. And it's such a great story because Travis is a lovely guy, down to earth. Loves his golf, loves his cricket. Um, and loves South Australia. So tremendous stuff from him. And then to see Steve Smith make that 100, I mean, that was just glorious stuff. he dropped anchor yesterday in the most difficult conditions, and he allowed all the batters to play around him, and just fantastic. And wow, I think we could see a lot of hundreds this summer for Smith. Obviously, in England, there's always the chance you're going to get a good ball early, but I think Smith just looks in. He's looking. I wouldn't say back to his best ever form, but he's certainly playing very, very well. But a very good fight back by India this morning. Very good fight back by India this morning. Paul.
G'day. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I've tried a different
How are
method now.
you?
I don't know what. I'm good. I think it was a great session of cricket.
All right.
How's your
Let's
monologue
just start
been?
again. Well, let's just take it from the top, because I'm going to turn this into a podcast. There's a few people listening live. I've been rambling on about Travis Head and his career development. But we'll take the podcast from the top. All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. I'm Menners, and it's lunch on day 2 of the World Test Championship. When we left you, the score was 3 for 170, and now Australia are 7 for 422. Lots of action to talk about. A thrilling session yesterday to finish off day 1. Paul Dennett, good evening. How are you?
G'day, Menners. I'm very good. I think that was a very, very entertaining first session of cricket. 4 for 95 off 25 overs, if my maths doesn't elude me. And as I was saying to you earlier, I think it was a session for the casual fan who stumbled upon it on free-to-air television and thought, oh, I'll give this a go, to really enjoy. Last night was more for the purists. Tonight, I think, had you couldn't ask for much more in a session of Test cricket than that. I really enjoyed it.
Agree. Now, I want to get into what happened in the last session yesterday. But before we do that, I just want to talk about something that's kind of disappointed me a little. I saw that one of our listeners, Raj, has left a review of our show on the Apple iTunes site in Great Britain. And in that review, he leaves us 2 stars, which is fine. Like, if you don't like us, that's another thing. But he says in the review that we got factual errors wrong. And the one thing he's saying is that, we were talking about Unadkat playing in the World Test Championship, but Raj was very annoyed because Unadkat was ruled out of the World Test Championship final weeks ago. But that is not the case. And Paul, I guess my point of view is happy to take feedback, but I think if you're going to put something like that on a public-facing review site, questioning sort of facts, you should kind of check them.
Yeah, I think so. Unadkat, if you look it up, is actually one of the listed subs for this game. He's officially on the bench, and it was speculated even in the days leading up to it that he might actually have a chance of being playing in the 11. He was ruled out of the IPL. That's what he was ruled out of. There's one line I like in the review: just reading out statistics doesn't add much. And the thing is, that's what every preview should be. It should be statistics only and nothing else. I add other things to it because I know that the humans out there don't like that. But the reality is, if you could just reduce cricket to statistics, that would be a far better review. People who say, and the great Shane Warne used to say, I don't care about his batting average necessarily. I want to know when he scored his runs. No. Just give me the figures and they will not tell a lie. What you've got to sometimes do is to make sure that the figures are robust. And that's what I did. But that if you go back and listen to that preview, anyone, you will have lots of stats, number after number after number, and it's just joyful.
Yeah, and I don't mind him criticizing that. Like, if someone doesn't want to listen to you reading out numbers, or the review before. Well, the review before said I was annoying. I don't mind that, but I mind them putting on Apple that we got the facts wrong when you and I do our best to check everything. Sure, we make mistakes, but we really check our stuff the best we can.
That's true.
All right. So thanks, Raj. If you're listening, I'd love it if you could delete that review because that is not correct. No, I'm serious. Like, change it. Change it so you don't like us, whatever. But don't say we don't know who's in the team for a match we're previewing. All right, let's get into the action. So when we left yesterday, Paul, it was 3 for 170. Head and Smith were batting well. They hadn't quite got to a century partnership yet. But then in the last session, they opened up none for 157. They ended up putting on 250, their partnership, by stumps off 370 balls. It was just an incredible display, especially from Travis Head, who went to his first Test ton overseas.
Yeah, and then they scored almost as much in the last session as they had done in the first two sessions combined. Obviously, they get to play the last extra half hour. Still, India managed to only bowl 85 overs, even with the extra half hour. I mean, we went on about it last night, but God almighty, that's a terrible, terrible over rate. But Travis Head, I love kind of overreacting to these things, but if you're picking the Australian side right now and you can only pick one batter, you'd probably just about have to pick him. He's, he came in at the fall of the wicket of Labuschagne when the game was in the balance, and with Smith giving great support and holding staunch at one end, but it was Head who changed the face of the game. And you could imagine if you'd substitute someone else in for Head, like a decent player who might have been on the fringe. If Cameron Bancroft had come in rather than Travis Head, it's quite conceivable that Australia could have got bowled out last night. That's what a big innings it was. Triumph. The fact that it's his first Test 100 overseas, I think, shows that it's been a while for him. He bloomed late, as it were, at Test level. But since he's been back in the side, the way that he's been playing is the way that he should always play. And it was a fabulous, fabulous innings.
Yeah, it was. So his first Test ton overseas, his 6th ton overall. It came off 106 balls, and it was the first ever century in a World Test Championship final. There wasn't a century made when India and New Zealand played. So history for Travis Head. And that last session, I thought India started to look a bit ragged. They weren't bowling well.
No, and you can't blame them in some respects. It was it must have been dispiriting, the gradual diminution of the clouds in the morning that suddenly gave way to a lovely, beautiful day. And we talked about it last night, how it's, I was saying it's easy to criticize Rohit Sharma in hindsight, but he must have been standing out there watching bowlers bowl some pretty ordinary stuff towards the end, getting spanked to the boundary and thinking we could have been doing this if we batted.
That's right. And I thought Steve Smith played really nicely in that last session. He'd been very watchful early on, but as the bowlers started to tire, he started to find the boundary with more regularity. And I was fighting the heavy eyelids to see if Smith would make his century before stumps, but alas, he didn't make it. 95 not out. Travis had 146 not out. Just an electric first day. And a lot of people have compared Travis Head's innings to sort of stuff we used to have seen from Adam Gilchrist. And I got to say, it's a good comparison.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, different styles to a degree, but the fact that they're both left-handers, there's the method is similar, and the stat they put up during the innings was that his strike rate in the World Test Championship cycle has been about 80 odd, which was something roughly similar to Gilchrist's career strike rate. So there are massive similarities in the way that he's playing and the way that he's taking games away from the opposition. I had the same problem with you, that it was ridiculous when he was playing so well that I was getting tired. And I must say that it's very, as much as I love the fact that it's on Channel 7, Channel 7 have got to fix up their mobile application. You can't watch it. You should be able to pause it and then catch up and fast forward between the balls like you can on every other app. I don't know how they've got an app that is as though it's from 10 years old. Normally late at night like that, I sometimes like to pause it, have a nap for 10 minutes or go for a walk or something, come back, watch, fast forward between the balls and catch up. Last night when I just had no choice but to watch it every single ball live, I did actually fall asleep and wake up during some sort of hideous infomercial wondering where I was.
You can't even actually rewind properly as well. I don't know. You seem to be able to go back a little bit, but not too much. So Anyway, not great. But so that was stumps on the first day. Heard Head and Smith after play say that, pretty tough early on, but then as we noticed, things started to flatten out a bit. But then this morning, so Smith was 95 not out. Travis Head was on strike, first ball of the day, hits a single, brings Smith on strike. So he's on 95 not out. And I'm actually nervous, Paul, because I'm like, he never liked to start the day that close to a ton. I don't know. I just never like watching that. I always get nervous. But then second and third ball of the day, half volley on leg stump, which he just turns away on the onside. 4-4 goes from 95 to 103 by the third ball of the day. And Smith goes to his 31st Test century.
Magnificent. His average has risen above 60 during this innings. And I think it's a mark of such a great player that he probably wasn't at his best yesterday. He fought, he got through it. Travis Head deservedly got all the headlines, but Smith brings up yet another century, his 31st century, and those first two balls that he faced from, was it Siraj, were woeful, and the Sunil Gavaskar in commentary didn't miss him either, and he deserved it.
Indeed. So that was his century came off 229 balls. It was his 7th Test century in England, his 9th Test century versus India. So that's 9 of 31. Loves playing against India, and also an indication that Australia's relationship with India during his career has probably been better than most other batters in the fact that we've played regular Test series, 4 tests usually.
His record against India is extraordinary. And the point that you make there, that the 100 he got off, was it 220 something balls, that you're making that point correctly to indicate that he batted quite slowly, indeed very slowly. I have in front of me on my desk, I don't know why, Bobby Simpson's 1968 Book of the Ashes, and he talked about a century that someone scored there off, I think, 217 balls. And he made a specific point of saying that that's the number of balls he faced to indicate what a rapid innings it was. And I think it was in the final test. And he said he's going to secure the £50 prize for the fastest century of the summer or something like that. It's like, oh my God.
Times have changed. So at the other end, Travis Head went to 150 off 164 balls, and Head finished with 163, then caught by the keeper off Siraj. Awkward little shot, just went straight up, trying to sort of play a half crossbat shot. You can't criticise him because it was an amazing innings.
Yeah, it was a kind of a Siraj got a bit angry earlier on, actually, when Smith hit those 2 fours, and then the next ball, I think he pulled away because maybe Spider Cam got in the way, and Siraj somewhat petulantly threw the ball in the direction of the stumps, and it was good to see him a bit fired up. But the commentators were making the point that they pitched the ball up to Head too much early on, and then only sort of went short to him later on, as though had they gone short earlier, they would have got his wicket because of the fact that he was struggling against the short ball. And I'm not sure that I agree with that. I mean, yes, they put a package together where he struggled, looked ungainly against several short balls, but he also hit many, many cross-bat shots to the boundary through third and pulling the ball as well. And ultimately, the way the ball he got out on was not the greatest of shots, but it certainly wasn't the greatest of balls. And I think that India, the lesson they need to learn for the second innings against Travis Head is, as is often the case, it's the good old boring basics. They needed to tighten up and hit the top of off stump more against him, and the occasional judicious bouncer, sure. But if they come out in the second innings and just bowl bouncer and after bouncer at him, then I think they've taken the wrong lesson out of what a fabulous innings he played.
Indeed. So that was a 285-run partnership. And yeah, I don't think he's susceptible to the short ball. I think he looked a bit awkward when he was getting up to his century yesterday and they started to bowl short to him. But I think that was him thinking, well, I'm on 90-odd. I don't really want to get out pulling at this stage. I want to get my 100. So I don't think that's an indication that he can't play the short ball. It just, probably didn't want to take that risk so close to an elusive away century. And Indian fans will remember, for all cricket fans will remember, he got 90 in the last tour of India and was so gutted not to make his first away century then. So
yeah,
I don't think
and
he
also,
wasn't
go on.
No, go on. I said didn't want to throw it away.
Well, the other thing is that it's a sort of pitch that you would have to be a little bit nervous playing the short ball because of the variable bounce that we've already seen. I mean, we saw that one in the first night in particular. There was 2 that hit Labuschagne on the hands, but one in particular that kind of reared from nowhere. Warner faced at least 1 or 2 that did the same. And Kumar Sangakkara made the point in the preview that you sometimes get on these sorts of pitches where the pitch on day one is a little bit soft, that there's the indentation of the ball into the pitch, and then as it hardens and dries, that the ball, if it hits the right spot of the indentation, flies up, and if it's the wrong spot, it sort of shoots along low. I wouldn't be all that keen to be trying to intercept the ball with a horizontal bat with my head in the way of it if I missed it. I mean, when there's variable bounce like that, I think anyone would be nervous about playing the bouncer.
Yeah, it's a good point. So that brought Cameron Green to the crease when Head was dismissed, and he hit his first ball for 4 down to third man. And I thought, boy, we might see a bit of IPL Cameron Green here. But then he was caught at, was it second slip? I think
second or third slip. I think Shubman Gill, good catch. Was it even third? I don't know. It was either second. It might have been second.
Off the bowling of Shami. Yeah, good catch, heading towards his head. And if you look at the replay, he almost turns just as he catches it because he's worried about getting sconed in the head. So Cameron Green was out for 6. So that made the score 5 for 376.
I hope that he
And
doesn't. I hope that he listens to Ricky Ponting. Ponting made a very good point in commentary, saying that the criticism has been correct of Cameron Green, that he's been a little bit too defensive at Test level. He probably went a little bit too far the other way today, and probably that shot wasn't on. But I hope he doesn't then go back into his shell. I think that basically that's the right thing to do. That probably wasn't the right ball so early on to play that shot to, though.
No, so Cameron Green was out. That brought Alex Carey to the crease, and that so Australia lost 2. Oh,
Hi.
hi. Yeah, so I was just saying India fought back with those 2 wickets in the first hour when it looked like the game might get away from them.
Yeah, I think that the problem with India was having been so far behind on that first day that they needed everything to go right for them in that first session, and it didn't quite go that far. But I think they've done enough in the first session that although Australia is still well in front, India haven't quite forfeited any chance of getting something in this match. They still, if they batted really well, could get something out of this game. But Australia are obviously massively in front.
Indeed. So then after the drinks break, Steve Smith was out for 121. I wouldn't say casual dismissal, but he was playing wide of his body and dragged it back onto the stumps of Thakur. 121 of 268 deliveries, 19 fours. Tremendous innings, but yeah, frustrating dismissal.
Yeah, it lives up to Shardul Thakur's nickname of Beefy that I mentioned the other night, that he does things a bit like Ian Botham, and that's Ian Botham famously got his first Test wicket getting Greg Chappell dragging a wide long hop onto his stumps. He got a bit of the magic golden arm they used to call Ian Botham, and it was actually notable for a period after that a few players were doing that, mistiming shots off the back foot and getting some sort of under edges. So doesn't probably fill the Indian batters with a whole lot of confidence about how this pitch is going. I mean, it's certainly not a minefield, but it's not flattening out. You wouldn't call it a flat deck at this stage.
Well, I heard some experts who are at the ground say that it has the look of one of those pitches where a few divots might have been made into it on that first morning. And as it sort of starts to bake, those divots will harden and therefore the ball might do a little bit.
Yes, exactly. And then we had the run out of Mitchell Starc.
What happened there?
He just had a bit of a brain fade, I think. Tapped one to mid-off. There was never a run on there. And the substitute, Akshar Patel, who was on the field for, was it Shami?
Yes.
The Shami Garage. And did a beautiful piece of fielding through down the stumps. And as he walked off, they cut to Ricky Ponting sitting in his suit in the near the commentary box, shaking his head because the famous run out of Ricky Ponting in the 2005 Ashes, when who did they sub off that was slow, and they brought Pratt, the substitute, on, and then
that's right, yeah.
Ricky Ponting was swearing at Duncan Fletcher in a really angry way as he walked off. And the thing that I loved about it was after in the Channel 7 coverage at the start of the lunch break, James Brayshaw and Ricky Ponting and Justin Langer were having a laugh about it. And Ricky Ponting made the point, I'm laughing about today's incident. I still actually can't laugh about the one from 2005. And his face lost the smile. And he wasn't angry, but he just, like, you could say, oh, yeah, 18 years, it's too soon. It's too soon.
Yeah, Matt Hayden made a comment about it too. So, yeah, Stark ran out for 5. Big wicket because he can be dangerous down the order, especially can score quickly. So at lunch, Australia 7 for 422. I would be, Paul, uncomfortable if Australia were bowled out under 450, given the platform laid by Smith and Head. I think, the way they played, the other batters should really get them up close to 500 would be obviously ideal.
Would be ideal, but I think at this stage that it's not looking likely because, they haven't got a whole lot left. Lyon should play with freedom, and these two both can obviously bat. Cummins, I'd like to see play with more freedom than he does, but that tends to be his method. Yeah, it's been an interesting morning. I think that Australia probably were quite aggressive, and that's probably the right approach. But I think that the fact that India have taken a few wickets shows that there is enough in there. But I still think my overarching view of the Indian bowlers has been that they have not been accurate enough. They haven't been disgraceful, but I think that a more honed-in, accurate, disciplined effort would have was called for, and I'm hoping that's what we're going to see from the Australian bowlers.
Agree. I actually have a really good feeling about the Aussie attack. I think they could just slice through that Indian top order. But let's see. Got one last question here from Anthony. Paul, thoughts on Matthew Hayden in the commentary box?
I don't like him in the commentary box. I think I always give the sort of the writer that obviously one of the best opening batters Australia's ever had. I think he's a great mentor, and I think he'd be an interesting guy after play for 5 minutes to give, or 10 minutes to give his thoughts on the day. But in the commentary box, he's just too annoying. He's over the top. He's he's just too much hard work. And Richie Benaud used to say, the first thing you got to do is not be annoying. You're being an invited guest into someone's living room for the night. And I just think that Matthew Hayden is not a great commentator. And I always say, you can't expect to be an unbelievable batter and an unbelievable commentator. You can't. Not everyone has all these talents. So I just think that it's a bit of an insult to the viewer that they keep on bringing him out there, because the feedback I get on Twitter, I said all the time, there are plenty of people that he is annoying. I'm sure there are plenty that like him as well, but I just think the ratio is such that they should say, in the same way that some people aren't cut out for Test cricket, you're probably not cut out for commentating Test cricket.
Yeah, can Justin Langer talk about himself a bit more? I mean, I like the guy, but okay, it's not all about you, buddy. Anyway, look, that's it for our wrap from the the first 4 sessions of the World Test Championship final. It's lunchtime. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast. Enjoy the rest of the action. We'll be back soon with another update.
See ya.
Good stuff. We're still
going, I think.
Don't Raj, delete it. You better be fixing that review right now.